Hey, I'm Penny, and this is a minimalist art project featuring watercolor and pen mixed media. Perfect for beginners, featuring a Mungyo 48 pan watercolor set called Passion for Masterpieces. This artwork is also being featured as an upcoming book cover. To learn more on how you can do the same thing, be sure to click this video here. Hit the subscribe with notifications set to all so you don't miss anything. If you're new to watercolor pan sets, most of them come with individually wrapped colors in them. All of the supplies I'm using, including the pan set, are available on Amazon, and I will link those in the video description below. Once you've unwrapped all of your colors, it's a good idea to do your swatch on paper. If you'll be using white and black paper, it's a great idea to do your swatches on both. This helps you to be able to make your color selections quickly when you're painting. Once you mix them with water and start to apply them to the paper, they can take on a completely different look. A tip here, most artist sets will have the color number on the individual pan color. So once you've unwrapped it and you want to replace that color, if they have open stock, you can order just that color by the number. I have noticed not all pan sets do put the numbers on the individual colors, so it's a good idea when you unwrap them to have a Sharpie nearby so that you can put the color number on it if they allow open stock ordering. And of course, number your swatch paper so the colors coincide. Pan sets are pretty nifty to work with because they have these neat little mixing areas on the pan. They have small areas and then larger areas, which makes it really convenient when you're traveling. The box will often feature the color swatches on the back of it, and many of them will come with a color swatch card that's already numbered. Now let's get into the fun. Remember, art is not supposed to be stressful, so don't fear the blank piece of paper or canvas. Mistakes will happen. It's what you learn to do with them that counts. And this comes from just letting loose of the fear and jumping in, playing with the paints. This is what I like to call a minimalist art project, and it's featuring mixed media using watercolor and pen and ink. I call it minimalist because it requires minimal items to do the project and minimal time. All you need is your watercolor pan set or your choice of watercolors, your watercolor paper, water, and of course your brush and some paper towels. You'll see me also use a spray bottle in the process. The brush I'm using is a number 9 round, and I love this brush because it really holds a lot of color in it, which is exactly what we want for this project. Notice I started out by spritzing my palette and also spritzing my paper. Now, this is a very inexpensive watercolor mixed media paper, so you can see it's starting to curl. A heavier weight paper will be less likely to curl on you. And of course, the heavier weight paper, generally the more expensive. I'm simply loading up my brush right now with water and some pigment. As you're learning, you'll want to use less expensive papers. In order to prevent the curling, you can tape it to a clipboard, and I'm being really lazy here and not doing that. You'll find that you achieve different effects by applying the pigment to either wet or dry paper. For this project, I want the pigment to spread out, so that's why I misted the paper. I'm just laying down some basic shapes. You've got 3 petals here done in pink, and this is forming the start of a flower. We're starting out slow here, but we're going to pick up the pace very quickly. On these round brushes, if you have them loaded with pigment and then you start from the tip and press the body of the brush down, you'll get a nice oval shape. Hey, and as I promised, mistakes are being made, so my first 3 petals are not perfectly oval with nice little petal points. And that's okay because you can add the points to them, but with watercolors, be careful. You do not want to overwork your colors. Sometimes it's easier to come back into it once it has dried. You will develop a feel for this the more you work with the colors. The second pink flower petals have come out perfectly. Now let's clean our brush off and pick up a different color. I'm spritzing the paper here so that the color comes out a little more transparent and flows. Now we're just picking up our third color. I think I love doing florals because it's hard to mess up the shapes. Generally, whatever shape you put on paper can be found somewhere in nature. Otherwise, we're just going to call it Impressionist art anyway. And here I'm just adding some water and working back into those dried petals. I'm also adding some highlights, lowlights, and some shadows. Highlights and lowlights and shadows can come in the form of less or more transparent color on the paper. We're just continuing with this method and picking up some different colors and adding it into our painting. Working with the petals, creating more petals, and adding stems and leaves. You'll notice I'm also working back over some of the areas previously. Either I'm working into them dried or back into them wet. If you're trying to achieve a more dramatic look, you're going to work back into them dried with a heavier pigment. If you're trying to achieve a softer look, you're going to work back into them with some water, making them more translucent. Be careful not to overwork those wet areas, as inexpensive paper can begin to wear a little thin. Find that you've got too much water on your paper, just simply blot it with a paper towel. Just be sure to do it gently so you don't smear things. And if it's in a specific area, you can always use just the corner of the paper towel to absorb the water. As the flowers have dried, I can add back in some vibrant details. I'm simply using less water and heavy pigment in the brush. And for those shadow background areas, it's more water for a more translucent look with less pigment. I'm really enjoying this set by Mungyo. The pigments are very rich and lay down very smooth. There's no graininess to them at all. I love this vibrant color effect that I'm getting by adding heavy pigment with just a small amount of water from this Mungyo paint set. Coming up, we're going to give this painting a whole new look by adding a pen and ink outline to it. Love the way that mixed media and mixing things up really makes your projects look so uniquely different. If you're having fun with this project, don't forget to smash the thumbs up like for me and share your comments and questions below. Now let's give our flower some definition with a fine tipped pen. Pens are by Micron and they are archival ink quality, so they are professional and safe for photos and artwork. They will not adversely affect your art over time. You do want to make sure you're using a permanent ink because you're working with watercolors here and you don't want to take the risk of it smearing. It's important to let your artwork dry completely before you start to work with your pens. Doing this type of outline over top of watercolor just takes a little imagination. You're actually just defining your flowers and your petals and leaves. I love the combination of this because I love working with the watercolors and the color therapy, but I also really like working with the pens and defining the flowers. If you love this drawing and want to own it, you can do so. Make sure you click the link in the video description for my Amazon author page and pop over there and check out the book cover with it. It's featured on an awesome journal anyone can use, and if it's not available when you're over there, just keep checking back. At the time of creating this video, it was in print. To learn more on how to turn your artwork into published books, be sure to subscribe and check out this playlist. Check out my Patreon site in the description below for exclusive content there. I'm Penny Morgan, and I'll see you here again soon.